Hello, this is Joseph Shulam. I'm speaking from Jerusalem, from the Nativia Bible Instruction Ministry, and we are going to start a series on YouTube that is going to deal with the parables of Jesus. And parables in general are very, very interesting and complicated method of teaching, and essentially people use parables in order to have some moral implication in a story that is not offensive. And we know big series of parables like Aesop's parables or Krylov's parables, and we tell them to the children, but essentially every parable has some kind of a hidden meaning in it. We see this in the question that the disciples ask Jesus in Matthew chapter 13 verse 10. They essentially ask him, why do you teach with parables? And his answer is very interesting. He said, it was given unto you to know the secrets of the kingdom of God, and to others it was not given to know the secrets of the kingdom of God. Therefore we understand that every parable has some kind of a secret in it. It has some kind of a hidden meaning in it, because otherwise there would be no need to tell the parable. The parable is a short, pithy, sometimes humorous story that tells us things that cannot be normally told, either because of political reasons or because of moral reasons or because of just simple security reasons. Cannot be told openly. So people use animals, trees, and stories that have to do with something else that have implication that is normally political or moral, that cannot be told directly. The two famous parables of the Old Testament are Jotham's parable in Judges chapter 9, in which he's talking to Abimelech, who killed 70 of Gideon, the judge Gideon's children, and he's the last son remaining, and he wants to tell the people that are gathered in Shechem about the evil of this leader that they have appointed to lead them. And he can't come out there and say that Abimelech, my illegitimate brother, killed all the children of Gideon that saved you from the Midianites, because he would be dead too. So he stands up on the hill in front of Abimelech and the people of Shechem, and he tells a parable about the trees. He said the trees went out into the forest to look for themselves for a king, for a leader, and they came to the olive tree and they said, be a king over us. And they said, the olive tree said, no, I'm not going to give up my oil and my fruit in order to be your king. They went to the vine, and the vine said, I'm not going to give up my grapes and my wine. They went to the fig tree. Finally they went to the bramble bush. And the bramble bush said, okay, I will be king on you, but I have some conditions. That you come under my shade, and that you allow me to rule you. And in a sense, it was a very political parable that Jotham said. Now, same thing is true with Nathan's parable in chapter 11 and 12 of 2 Samuel, in which Nathan comes to David after he sinned with Bathsheba and tells him this parable about a rich man that had many sheep and a poor man that had only one sheep, and the rich man takes the poor man's sheep and he slaughters it to feed his guests, and David says a person like that should be dead, and Nathan turns the tables around and says, you are the person. A very political, very moral parable that Nathan uses to tell the king something that if he told him, it'd be the same as John the Baptist. His head probably would be on a platter. So I want to teach actually not about the parables of the Old Testament, but about the parables of Jesus. And the parables of Jesus are also the same as any other of the parables. They have a hidden meaning. Jesus himself said it. And they have a moral implication, and they also have political implications. So we want to understand some of the parables, and I want to use one of the parables of Jesus from Matthew 13, in which he tells about the kingdom of God. In fact, everybody should know that Jesus spoke about the church only twice, and only in the Gospel of Matthew. In chapter 16 and in chapter 18, the word ecclesia is used only twice. Most of what Jesus was teaching is about the kingdom of God. Kingdom of God, of course, existed already in the days of Moses, in the days of Abraham. So let me go to this one parable of Jesus that is talking about the mustard seed. And it reads like this. Verse 31 of Matthew chapter 13. Another parable put forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of God is like a grain of mustard seed, which men took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all the seeds. But when it is grown, it is greater among the herbs, and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air will come and lodge in its branches. Very short, interesting parable, except when somebody examines it, he must come to the conclusion that Jesus didn't know anything about plants. Because definitely, mustard seed is not the smallest of all the seeds. The seeds of the poppy seeds that we eat in Purim, in Haman's ears, and poppy seed cakes, and the seed of flowers, and the seed of basilicum, they're all smaller than the seed of the mustard seed. So, how is it that Jesus didn't know what he's talking about as far as agriculture is concerned? Why did he use the mustard seed as an example? He said it's the smallest of all the seeds. But when you examine the Bible and see how the word seed is used, most of the time that the word seed is used is not talking about plants. It's talking about the seed of Abraham, the nation of Israel. And the nation of Israel, we read in Deuteronomy, is the smallest of all the nations, the least of all the nations. So when Jesus uses the term the least of all the seeds, he's not talking about mustard seed. He's talking about the nation of Israel. But why does he mention the mustard seed? Because we Jews are not so sweet, not such sweet people. We're a little bit bitter, a little bit sharp, and we are sometimes not so pleasant. Like if you take a handful of mustard seeds and you try to chew it, you'll find out how unpleasant is the mustard seed. But we are, as Jews, as Israelites, one of the smallest of all the nations, and definitely the smallest of all the ancient nations that still exist. So, Jesus is not talking about mustard seed, because most Christians, when they think of mustard seed, they think of faith. If you have faith like a mustard seed. But Jesus is talking about the people. And mustard plant doesn't grow much taller than 3 or 4 feet tall. It doesn't become a great big tree. And it's not strong enough to even have a nest of a sparrow built on it. It will fold and fall, the mustard seed, if a sparrow builds its nest and lays eggs on top of it. So what was Jesus talking about? He was actually quoting from Ezekiel. Jesus was quoting from Ezekiel chapter 17 verse 22 and 23, in which God promises Ezekiel that the nation of Israel will grow up and be a great big tree, and all the birds of the air will come and nest on its branches, meaning all the Gentiles, all the nations will come. The way Isaiah describes it, he says, they will come and say to one another, let us go up to the God of Jacob, for out of Zion shall come forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. The day will come in which this small nation will host all the nations under the shadow of its branches. The God of Israel will be the God of the whole world, and Yeshua will be the King and the Messiah of the whole world, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And we are going to continue this series. Look for us under either Joseph Shulam or Nativia on YouTube. God bless all of you.